Most of us carry questions we never say out loud. Questions about loss, identity, contradictions, and what it means to be human. This podcast is a place to sit with these questions without rushing towards answers. I'm Aya Karuni, and this is You and Aya. This episode is sponsored by Carbon Coffee Lounge on 33rd and A in Lincoln, Nebraska. All right, so today's guest is Mike Murphy. He is one of my friends that I met a while ago, of course, through running. That's how I met most of the community in Lincoln, Nebraska. But we connected over grief. He recently lost his wife, and today, actually May 16th, was her birthday. So it was an extremely emotional episode for me too, because I knew going into this episode we were going to be discussing grief and loss and how do we really cope after things like that happen. So yeah, today's episode is with Mike. He's an incredible person, and he was willing to be raw and open to discuss these intimate moments about what it feels to deal with grief after he lost his wife. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Maybe prepare a box of tissues with you, because I started the episode crying literally. But anyways, yeah, it's a very intimate conversation about grief and loss, and it's a bit of a different vibe. So I really hope that you enjoy it, and to be continued. Today we have one of my dear friends, Mike Murphy. Mike Murphy, I'm so glad you can be with me today. How are you?
It's good to be here. I'm good. I'm just kind of wondering, okay, where is this going to go? What's going to happen? But that's part of the fun. I'll say it's part of the fun, question mark.
It's going to be a lot of fun. You already know. You already know that. Yeah. So let's start with a very simple question. Who is Mike?
It's complicated. It's not simple. But it's I think like anybody, I'm a lot of things. I'll say first, I'm a widower, and I mention that because I was a husband. Sometimes I still feel like a husband. I'm a dad. I'm a grandpa. I am a teacher, musician, retired, but I don't know if you knew this. I taught a class at Wesleyan just this last semester.
You did tell me in an email,
yes. And they asked me to teach again next semester. So it's very, very part-time. Okay. But I'm still teaching, I guess. I'm a runner, as you know, and like most runners, I realize that nobody cares, but I will tell you every aspect and every detail of my running life, because that's what we do. Mm-hmm. But running does a lot for me, and I think I'm a very curious person. I love learning things, and I think running ties into that because I'm always wondering what's around the next corner, and I like to explore. I feel that I'm a very spiritual person, in that I know there's something bigger than me, and I'm always trying to discern what that is.
Beautiful.
That's probably I could go on and on, but I won't. But I feel like I'm a lot of things, but as we all are.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mike. Beautiful introduction. Thank you for telling us that. And I feel like I knew some of these things because I already know who you are.
We've had some deep conversations.
Yes. And
our first conversation was actually pretty deep.
And that's why you're here today. Yeah. I know we kind of want to touch base on the process of grief, of losing a loved ones. And I'm already anticipating this. I feel like I'm going to break into tears. I feel like I already am, because I can see it.
I can see your eyes. And I have tears I have tears. I was going to say I have Kleenex in my pocket. I'll probably have tears in my pocket too at some point.
So it seems like there's a really huge theme about grief for this podcast. We might cut this later, but whatever. But Thank you for being here.
Mhm.
And I've already been anticipating this. I'm like, it's gonna hit, and it's already hitting. So we can just cut this out. So don't mind it for now. Let me just have it. But yeah, I just wanted to have you here today because I know grief has been very hard for you.
You're doing exactly what we're supposed to do, and that is we're supposed to be with it.
We can just put a little tiny tear in the video, not all of it, because this is just ridiculous. But really, I've been very sentimental lately. And I actually was at the gym the other day, just listening to a song. And so I used to listen to these songs when I was with my dad. And I used to think they were love songs, but I don't think they were love songs. They were just songs about people that you loved. And then, of course, I had to write a poem about it and a whole spiel. And I've been sentimental since then, but it's just, yeah. So I just knew this was going to hit today because with you, I know how hard it's been for you.
Well, one thing, I mentioned this to you in a text a couple weeks ago, and you may or may not remember, but today is Karen's birthday. So I always get up early, but I got up early and just sat outside in the dark and wished her a happy birthday. And and just sat and I tried not to force any thoughts. I didn't force myself to cry. That's the thing. I just thought I just want to be whatever is. And I wanted to be rid of any of that clutter of, we always think, like I love journaling, and I journaled this morning, and of course I journaled about her birthday. And I don't know how many times I wrote simple, meaning I always feel like I have to be profound. Like, okay, it's her birthday. What am I supposed to feel?
The most poetic thing that you can think about.
Like, if I was Aya and writing a poem.
Do not be Aya, disclosure, do not.
How profound could I be? And I thought, I just wrote, I'm not supposed, the profoundness today with her birthday and the grief is just going to be the simplicity of letting it be what it is.
I think that's really beautiful.
And so I just sat outside and I listened to the birds sing with my cup of coffee and just sat in the dark. And then I went in and kind of I like to meditate too. And I just sat quietly. And then I just wrote in my journal, and I wrote to her and wished her a happy birthday, and just made an intention for the day that I wasn't going to try to be profound. I was just going to let it be what it is.
Yeah.
And I told her I was coming to talk to you.
So it was a big message then to her today. Do you want to share what you wrote, a little snippet of what it was?
Mostly it was gratitude for her, for us, for everything she was, and maybe the thing that's even more important, just everything she still is. Because to me, I'm sure it's the same with your dad. It isn't a was. It's an is.
It's the present.
And, even in this new life, and it's been 9 years, I know we talked, that the first time we talked, we discovered your dad and Karen died the same year. So we had all these connections that just came out. And, God, I think that I just wrote to her, thanking her for always being there and still being here. And I told you I'm spiritual. I do believe in some kind of an afterlife. I don't know what it is, but I believe she's still present. And I say that because ever since she died, I'm laughing because you would have to know Karen. She was so loving and so compassionate. but so snarky and sarcastic,
Mm-hmm.
but in a loving way, usually. Once in a while, but she was the type, she'd kind of whoop me upside the head or kick me in the rear. And she still does that because I get little signs and I really think they're authentic. And, it doesn't matter whether people think they are or not, they are to me. And one of the things, I have 3 sets of numbers, and I'll share them with you. 727 is our anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
516 today, her birthday. And 116, notice there's 2 16s in there, was the day we met, January 16th. And I know some people will say, well, you see those numbers because you're aware of them. Well, yes, that's true. But sometimes just when I need it, like her birthday's today, I stopped at a red light this morning and the license plate in front of me was 727, which is our anniversary. And, I choose to believe that's not a coincidence.
I believe you.
And even if it is, it was there. Somehow that was her. And there's so many things that have happened in the 9 years where I just go, and more so than just numbers, where it's just like, did that really just happen? Or how did that happen?
Yeah.
So, I don't know, did I ever tell you, I've shared this story in certain settings, so some people have heard this if they see the pod, but a year after Karen died, I had a dream, and I choose to call it a vision. And I don't know if I told you this, that first big conversation we had.
Refresh my
memory. But I'll tell you, because it wasn't the anniversary. Well, another thing about numbers that I find is kind of very symmetrical. Karen and I met on January 16th.
Okay.
She died on January 13th.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something, I don't know what it is, but there's something in my mind about the symmetry of meeting and her death.
The passing.
So close, date-wise.
Yeah. I mean, it's a huge symbolism.
But it's, but anyway, it was not the first year anniversary of her death to the date, but it was the week. Mm-hmm. So she was, she's always on my mind, but it was the first year, and had been a year. So it was really just heavy. And one night I had this dream, and it was so realistic. And I know we all have realistic dreams, but this was just like it happened. It was real. It was a vision. And Karen and I both worked for Pius High School and spent a lot of time there. She didn't always work in the building like I did. She was out teaching in other schools. But Pius is where our boys went to school. It was part of our life, our career, our marriage, our family. So in the dream, I was standing in the music room at Pius, and it was totally still. It was almost like I just had this sense that nobody was in the school. It was like just deserted except for me. And all of a sudden, there's these kind of translucent windows, and all of a sudden light started to come through these windows. And it just swirled around me, and it felt really warm, warm in like a bear hug warm, not heat, but just I felt this like warmth, like I felt a hug. And it was just so peaceful, and it was something drew me to walk out into the hallway right outside of the room. And I walked out, and Karen was standing there, and she looked translucent. She looked radiant. And she was wearing clothing that were colors. This is going to sound very strange, but sincerely, this is what happened. It was like colors that don't exist. They were just these bright, not colors that I can't explain. And I tried to find these colors after this vision, like, okay, what was that? Can I find it? What does it? And I could never find it. But in this dream, it was just this color. She was wearing a sweater, and it was a color that was so beautiful, but almost not of this world.
You've never seen it before.
I'd never seen
It's
it
her
before.
Spirit.
And she was standing there. She's just smiling at me. Karen had this beautiful smile and dimples and, adorable. And she was just smiling at me. And I looked at her and I just said, is it you? And she just kind of smiled like, kind of like, well, duh, yeah, it's me.
Yeah.
And just kind of like, of course. And then I asked a question that makes me laugh now, because that in this vision, I said, where have you been? And I'm like, well, I died, so, and that's where you can laugh about death. But I said, where have you been? But that leads to what really the point of this whole thing is. She just looked at me and smiled again, kind of like, well, duh. And she said, I've been here all along. And I believe she is. And that's what gets me through. And it's what's gotten me through a lot of days these last 9 years is I don't always feel her of course I don't feel her the way I wish I could. And there's days I pray just like, I want to feel you. I want to just feel your presence. And so often I do, but it's impossible.
And I think that's the hardest part of grief and missing that person. They are with you, but yet they're not. It's like, but you're not. Like, don't mess with me. Can't touch you. Can't talk to you.
But it was so, and then I just, as soon as she said, I've been here all along, I remember my eyes just popped open. And I just went like, what was that?
So you woke up from the dream. That was the moment you woke up?
That's the moment I woke up is when she said, I've been here all along. And I remember my eyes just popped open and I was like, and then I was like, that was real. I mean, it was
definitely real.
It was like real. I'm like, that wasn't a dream.
Yeah.
And to my credit, fairly short order, to my credit, is I journaled about it and wrote it down because I didn't want to forget it.
That's what I've been
doing. Not that I would, but I just like, I got it.
Yeah.
And then I remember I kept that. Some of my journals I get rid of or I shred. It's always a thing because I always have this fantasy that if I keep all my journals after I die, someone will discover them and think, what a brilliant man he was.
You're like, this is how you get discovered. It's always after you die.
Yeah, we're gonna publish these as a legacy for this amazingly smart person. So I'm always reluctant to get rid of my journals, but a year ago, one of my projects was to go through my journals and I started to shred them.
Okay.
And that was kind of cathartic too, because it was kind of but there's some that I kept. And the one I kept was the one about the dream. But after I wrote down what happened, I wrote, and it was almost like WTF. It's like, what was that color? Because it was the most amazing color.
Maybe colors are also feelings. Maybe it was also a feeling that you just couldn't pinpoint.
I love that.
Yeah. But
that's, so that's,
Thank you for sharing that. I want to cry. I feel like I'm so sentimental. I was like, why did Mike have to be my guest today? This is like, I'm too emotional. But honestly, I feel you 1,000,000% with your dreams. Well, I have dreams about my dad. And my latest poem was like, I was upset that he just doesn't come visit me anymore. Because I really think these are like, it's a portal of them coming to visit us because it's the only time they could. So I feel you 1,000,000%.
And maybe I have told you this, but that night that we sat down, there was that first night when I used my pickup line. I'll let the people just wonder what that was about.
It's like, have we met before?
It's like, and then the next week, because it was just the very next week when I'd figured out who you were and why I knew you. And I just need to say, give kind of a little shout out to a really good friend who, it started because when I realized who you were, it was in January because it was the anniversary of Karen's death.
Yes.
And this really very good friend of mine who you met market to market.
I think, yes.
And she had sent me a meme that you had put on Facebook. I think it was a quote regarding grief from one of
my quotes
podcasts or poetry. And she sent it to me on the anniversary of Karen's death, and it meant the world to me. And I think it had your podcast or your name. So I checked you out and realized...
Not physically, but only...
Yes. Poor choice of words.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I made that connection. And I remember the next week, I saw you at the cookie run. This is all at the cookie run at the Lincoln Running Company. And I don't even think I said hi. I just looked at you and said, you have a podcast. And I blurted that out. And then we started to talk. And then we went for the run.
And then we cried after.
And then we came and sat down and talked forever and cried together.
At least an hour, yeah. People probably thought we were weird. They're like, what's happening there? These people
are
just
crying and
almost eating on a crumbled cookie, like crumbles falling. And
two sad characters, crumbling cookies falling down our fronts
crying,
and tears.
Goodness.
And,
but yeah, that's when I knew at that moment, I was like, this dude will be perfect for my show, for this podcast. And again, that was almost a year and a half ago. But these things take a while. That's why I wanted to expand this program into something like this, to be vulnerable and cry and discuss these intimate... Because no one wants to talk about grief. No one wants to talk about losing a loved one. It's a very sensitive topic. And so thank you for...
The thing that's so ironic about grief is it's something, unless you die suddenly and you haven't lost anybody yet, 90+% of us are going to experience loss. And so grief is one of the most universal experiences in humankind.
The human experience.
Very good. And I set you up for that.
Yes, you really did. Thank you.
But it's that we're all going to experience it, but yet nobody wants to talk about it. And as you, I'm sure, have discovered, one of the things about grief that is so hard, and it doesn't have to be, is that it can be so isolating and you feel so alone.
Yes.
And the only way to get through that is to do what we're doing, is to cry and feel your emotions. You don't shove them away. You say their name.
Writing them down.
And you talk to people. And you're vulnerable. And instead, in Western society especially, we just close up and we hide, and we have this idea that, okay, you go grieve and you don't talk about it, you can go cry, and then about a year later, you're okay.
I wish. If that was the process, I'll take it. But unfortunately, it lingers for the rest of your life, which people don't want to say.
And honestly, and I'm sure you really believe this too, I don't want to be okay after a year. Meaning, because the grief is the love that we feel for those people. And do you ever feel like there's days that I just wake up and I even will have a smile on my face and I'll go, I just need to have throw myself on the floor and roll around, cry.
Yes.
And it's like, yes, I'm going to do this.
And I've done them before.
And I do.
Yeah.
And here I'm breaking up about it. But it's just like, that's what I'm going to do. I need this.
It has to be done. It has to be out of your system.
And it still happens now, almost 10 years later.
And now, right now on this chair, I'm like, you do it, gun to your head. You must do it.
I just said this thing, we won't do it, but we could just throw ourselves down now.
It's a bit constructive. Maybe we shouldn't do that. But
the thing is just we have to we have to feel it. And it does get better. I mean, we know it evolves and changes, but yet, as you know, it's always a cliche with grief, but it's not linear.
It's not.
And now, almost 10 years later, there's days that I feel like it was the day it happened.
Right.
And then there's other days where, yeah, it's been 10 years, but that's scary too.
It's so funny that you mentioned that because I went to therapy the other day, and every time I go to therapy, I've had like so many therapists since my father died. I would go in and the first thing I say, so I lost my father. My father passed away. And the most recent one was like, oh, when was that? I was like, back in 2017. And then she looked at me, she's like, she didn't do this, but in the back of my head, I was like, holy shit, she's counting. She's like, so 9 years ago. And I'm like, oh my God, it's been 9 years.
Yeah.
And every time something happens, every time there's an inconvenience, every time I'm sad, I'm like, oh, it's because my father died. And honestly, part of it is so true. It has been, it's going to be 10 years in July. And yeah, it is because of him, but also it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it was such a slap on the face of like, but it's been 9 years. Are you sure it's the only reason? And of course, it's not the only reasons. I have so many other things that are on my mind, but it just makes you wonder, like, does it get easier for you? How do you truly deal with grief on a day-to-day basis other than rolling out of the bed?
You maybe, because we're both grievers, and we think about it and maybe have even read about it and study it, there's this common description of like when you first lose somebody, there's that big hole, that void in your life is just huge.
Mm-hmm.
And then later, 5 years, or even now, like with you and I, 9 and 10 years later, there's days it feels like the hole or the void is smaller.
But it's still there.
But it's still the same size. It hasn't gotten smaller, but our lives have grown around it. So I'm not explaining it very well, but the hole is still there. It's still the same exact size.
But it's like there's flowers around it.
There's other things around
people. It's decorated, right. But it's like there.
It's there.
And it's a wound that it will never mend.
You've filled in your life. I guess I could say you've filled in your life with other people and things around that hole, but you haven't filled in the hole. Mm-mm. And you never will.
And it's an infinite hole.
And so there's days I notice the hole is every damn bit as big as it was 10 years ago.
And it's crazy.
But there's other days where that big hole is still there and it's still just as big, but maybe I'm able to focus more on the other things in my life that have happened since.
On the bigger canvas of life.
And
I relate to you. And I feel like everyone that's dealt with losing a loved one is dealing with it as well. Yeah. So how do you ever feel the guilt of, because, after I lost my dad, I was in denial for maybe a year and a half. I just would not accept it. And later I was like, holy crap, this is real. This is real. I can't, I still can't fathom the idea. Sometimes I picture him in my head. I was like, no, how is this possible? This cannot be possible. But there are times where I would be happy and I just felt so guilty. How can I continue to be happy when he's not here? Have you ever experienced that?
I've experienced that a lot, but I think I've dealt with it pretty well. Part of it's in my spiritual life. I think spiritualism brings out the paradox in life, the fact that you can feel grief, but you can still be happy. Mm-hmm. Or you had this great love, but you still can love again. Something I've told people, and I'm a good apologizer, and I don't mean to always be that way. I feel like I'm one of those people, I feel like I always have to justify things,
Maybe there's nothing wrong with that.
But so I always kind of apologize when I tell you what I'm going to say, but I say, this is going to sound really weird, and I'm sorry, but since Karen died, I have had an incredibly rich life. And right now in this moment, I don't feel guilty in saying that. Yeah. And part of it is because I know she doesn't want me to feel guilty about
Yeah.
that. We used to talk, and ironically, Karen died suddenly. It was a total surprise, so there wasn't any preparation, or I knew she was going to die. She collapsed in our bedroom, um,
In the middle of the night, I
and the
remember.
day she died, she taught school. And that makes me feel really so good. I mean, she was a great teacher,
Yeah.
and she taught her kids the day she died. And I'm going to go off topic a little bit from where I was going, but I knew at some point after she died, I was going to have to go talk to her students. And Karen was what's called an itinerant band instructor, meaning she had 3 different schools where she taught different days of the week. And so starting about a month after she died, when I felt like I was ready, not ready, but ready as ever,
Mm-hmm.
I made appointments through the teachers at those schools to go just sit and visit her kids. So, because I knew they would have questions. And one of the things that I kept hearing, because all her students knew who I was, they also wanted to know that I was okay. And I also knew that all of us, and she taught, the age group she taught was primarily 5th grade through middle school, so 5th through 8th grade. And just to be really blunt about it, I knew we all had to cry together. And I knew that would be good for them and good for me. But getting back to the school, the last day she taught was at St. Patrick's School in Havelock. And so those are the kids I went to see first. And I'll never forget this one 5th grade boy. And I knew as soon as he asked that it was one of the reasons I had to go was they were all crying and teary. We were talking and even kind of joking a little bit.
Yeah.
Because Karen had a lot of really clever, funny sayings. She was a really tough teacher, but she had these funny sayings and things. And but this little boy raised his hand and he just looked at me. And he said, "Did Mrs. Murphy hurt when she died?" And I could honestly tell him she didn't. She just collapsed, and I heard the thud, and I got up, and she was at the end of our bed, and I could tell it was serious. And of course, I'm calling 911 and talking to this dispatcher. And at one point, the dispatcher asked me she said, "How is she laying?" And I said, "She's kind of on her side." And she said, "Can you roll her over onto her back?" And I did, gently. And I know Karen didn't know what was going on, and I could tell
So she was still.
well, she couldn't talk. I could tell by the look in her eyes that she wasn't there. I checked, she was breathing,
Yeah.
and she had a little bit of a pulse, and we were talking about that, and do I need to do CPR? But as I'm smiling because this is the paradox of grief. It's the most horrific moment in my life, but it makes me smile because I started to roll her over, and she just said, "No, I just want to sleep." And so I could tell that little 5th grade boy that she just
Want to sleep.
She just wanted to go to sleep. And
That must have been really hard.
so and I don't remember how. Karen was at 3 schools, and I think I talked to 2 different groups at each school. And I'm not saying this to pat myself on the back at all. But talking to her students and talking to her kids, because that's what teachers call their students, um, it's one of the proudest things I ever did.
It's extremely brave. I don't think I would have been able to do it.
Yeah. And then that brings up the whole thing. I can't forget the first, my own two boys. Ryan lives in Lincoln, and so he was at the house. I called him and he came, as did, I have a lot of siblings, and they all came over. But my son Sean was in Seattle.
How was that phone call?
And that phone call, of course, it's the hardest phone call I ever had to make.
I bet.
And I can't even, it's 10 years now, almost 9.5 years. And you were talking about with your dad, you're like, how could this happen? It's like, how could this happen? And I think back to calling my son, who's halfway across the country. It's like, how did that happen? How can that be that I had to make that phone call?
That must have been the hardest thing you had to do.
And then, thinking of my two sons, even today on her birthday, or last week on Mother's Day. I'm the very proud grandpa of a gorgeous baby girl, almost a year old. And I do believe in God. And I do believe that it's okay to be really, forgive my language, but pissed off at God. And I still am.
You should. Being pissed off is the best feeling.
I'm really pissed off at God.
I know.
And it doesn't mean I don't love God, but it's like,
it's a test.
Karen used to talk about being a grandma. She should be here. And I'm not saying that. I think one thing about grief is you can't, it's okay to be bitter for a while because that's a human emotion. And you can't, if you're going to be angry or bitter, I know you have to be that way.
Yeah.
But there's a point where you can't live the rest of your life. Like I've come to terms mostly, I'm still pissed at you, God, but I can say that and kind of chuckle about it.
I know.
But I can't let bitterness
control
my life.
But
I look at my granddaughter and how beautiful she is. And I believe Karen, and she was in the NICU for almost a month when she was born. And I know that Karen was there for that and is still there, still here, not there. But getting back to grief, it's like all these things that I'm saying and things you've saying. I'm not trying to be an example for anybody, but I hope I am a good example, meaning you can't stuff it. You can't, you have to be open. You have to be vulnerable. You have to say things that maybe later you'll say, gee, should I have said that?
Yes.
I think I do that a lot. I'm sure I'll leave here today going, oh, I put all this stuff out there, but
we can always cancel this recording, pretend it never happened if you don't want to.
Oh, no. I know that would be pretending that, that would be pretending that Karen didn't die and that I don't feel. And that's the more,
What do you think? Like, how do you carry her legacy in those small moments in life? Now she's always wanted to be a grandma, never got the chance.
Well, as my granddaughter grows, she's going to hear a lot of stories about her. I try to be, Karen was really, I always joke about how Karen was so snarky, but in a very funny way. but she was so loving and so compassionate with her students, primarily with me and her sons. I mean, she was the ultimate mama bear when it came to our two boys. I want to be that way as a dad and grandfather. I think about it when I teach, because she was such an incredible teacher, musician. You know, since we're both runners, and Karen's mom died of pancreatic cancer in 2004.
Okay.
And as you know, pancreatic cancer is one of the most devastating forms of cancer. The survival rate is very low. And Karen's mom was diagnosed in March and died in September of 2004. So it was very quick.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry.
So one of the things, aside from just, you know, being a good teacher and a good person and a good dad, the way she was a good mom, Karen was a walker. She walked half marathons. I think she did 6 or 7 Lincoln half marathons as a walker. In literally the year before Karen died, there's a charity called Project Purple. This is a charity for pancreatic cancer. And they had a booth at the Lincoln Expo one year for the Lincoln Marathon. And we checked it out, and we decided that the next Lincoln half marathon, I would run and she would walk as charity runners for Project Purple in honor of her mom, who died of pancreatic cancer. Well, then Karen died, so we never got to do that. So the very first year, when I decided I wanted to start running marathons, well, I did this with half marathons too. I became a very, very whiny husband because I loved running, but I was like, I don't want to run a half marathon. I'm too old. I can't. And she just looked at me and
I'm the whiny husband
kind of whooped
too.
me upside the head, said, do it, quit.
So you told me this before.
She said, do it. And she kind of like put her foot up my rear, said, go do it and quit whining. So I ran half marathons for a long time. And then I pulled the same whiny act. I said, I want to run a marathon, but I'm too old. And she was like, foot, same place, just do it. So I ran 2 marathons. My first 2 marathons, she was there and cheering me on and just a huge cheerleader for me. And then she died. And I decided I applied to become a Project Purple charity runner, but it meant raising a lot of money. And so the year that Karen died, she died in January 2017. And in November, I ran the New York Marathon for Project Purple and raised several $1,000s.
Nice.
And I did that in honor of Karen for her mom. And then I ran 2 more New Yorks and a Chicago for Project Purple.
Wow.
And that's something that was for Karen, because she was the one that encouraged me, told me I could run a marathon if I really wanted to, and gave me the courage to do it, and then also just to do it in honor of her mom. And so that's part of the legacy, and I keep running partly for her.
Yeah.
Because she's the one that convinced me.
So, like, serious question. Who do you whine to now? Are you still whining?
Oh,
Who's kicking you, telling you to just go do it? You're gonna have to be your own motivator at the moment?
No, I have some very close friends who I still get whiny with, and they get very snarky with me.
You're so funny.
Yeah, I don't know, I still have snarky people in my life. And I mean that as a compliment.
And she's still around then.
She's still around.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think I keep saying we've mentioned this before, but I just need to give context to this. But I know I've known you for 2 years now, maybe more, when we've discussed many things. And one of my questions is just like, do you when it comes to love, like you've had a long life partner, you've had so many dreams, you build a life and you have a family together, and now it's gone. Like, when did you realize this is when my life changed? Like, this is it. My life has changed forever. When was that moment?
You know, that brings up one of the things that grievers discover. But for someone who hasn't experienced grief yet, I think it's the forgotten aspect of grief, is that when you lose somebody, like a parent or a spouse, you're not the same person you were. You're a whole different.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's one of the things. It's a big part of grief, because I grieve who I used to be, because I'm not. When Karen died, I'm not that person anymore. And at my core, I mean, we all are us.
Mm-hmm.
But like when you think of a spouse, partner, everything about your life is in relation to that person.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you go to the grocery store, you think of what are we going to eat?
Most asked question.
And and every day I'd be driving home from work, and just subconsciously I would think, oh, I wonder if Karen beat me home or not. Or you would remember, oh, she said she would be late. Or tonight she has book club. Or, I mean, your lives, and then all of a sudden, in just that moment, that's all gone. And I don't think I realized immediately. It was kind of an evolution, because it's like you're a couple, and then you're not. But the things that came up, I remember medical appointments, like you check the box, and there was something I went to where there's always a widowed or widower box. So there's that. But there was one time the choices were single or married. And I almost checked married. And then I went, I'm single. And that word single, I can't explain the feeling I had.
I know.
It was like, I'm single. How the heck? It was almost like, this is going to sound silly. It's like, when did that happen?
Oh, you're like, wait, how many years has it been? I didn't choose to be single.
I mean, I'm single.
Yeah,
and then you go to your medical appointment, and they want to update your information. And this really hit me hard one time. I had to change my contact information in case of an emergency.
Yeah.
I think one of the worst, the two worst places, and you probably maybe will understand one of them especially. I thought it was just me, but being part of widow and widower groups, I found out the grocery store and the car were two of the most difficult places. The first time I went shopping after Karen died, I could hardly get through it. Just buying for myself, realizing sometimes when I would go to the store, I'd be thinking, oh, I'm going to surprise her with her favorite snack, or she'll like this meal. I have some friends who told me who lost their spouse, and they said the first time they went to the store after their spouse died, they filled their cart up halfway and then couldn't finish, and they just left the cart and went home. And that's pretty dramatic, but
But see, that's what people, I mean, who would even think about something like that when they're dealing with grief?
And I found, do you ever cry? The car is this kind
I've cried in the car a lot.
The car is like this little cocoon. And the car, I still do it, but especially that first year, I always cried in the car.
it's a safe space.
Constantly.
You're like, if you have tinted windows, it's even better.
And just like you stop at the red light and you're like, I'm all right. I mean, you're not, it's like, I'm
All
not
good here, I promise.
It's like, I'm not okay, but I'm okay. It's, you know.
So you mentioned something earlier about, it's just like you're kind of grieving yourself. Like it's those pieces that you left. And I think a lot of people are afraid once they deal with that, with losing a loved one, is you are upset. You're extremely upset that you've lost this person. But then at one point it kind of just like, it does this like weird circle, and it kind of like goes within of that part that you're grieving about, this self, about you, who you are, who you will never be. This, right. That's when I said, and I think that what might have been the quote that you resonated with is, I think we will always have that piece with them. Like there's a piece of me. It's just like it has been like dissected, and it's like it's part of them. Yeah. And I think that's something that not a lot of people talk about, is that self-loss as well with them. Yeah, and that we end up also grieving ourselves within that process.
That's so huge. And even just in this last week, I've been reading, because I follow a lot of social media grief sites. And I know there's a point where if people need to move away from that, fine. But I still find it's good for me just to, in this past week, it's come up a lot in things I've been reading about. The grief we feel we're grieving us.
Yeah.
Because we lost who we were. And like when I said, I think I've lived a really rich life since Karen died, as she would want me to. I still think about who I was with her.
And you miss those.
And I'm not that person anymore. And I like the new me, but I miss the old me a lot.
It's like, who are who are we?
And sometimes I'm like, who am I? Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of that. Who am I?
I ask my therapist a lot that question. I was like, what's wrong with me? Why do I miss? I'm like, I didn't used to be like this. I think the most common thing I ask or share with my therapist is, I didn't used to be like this. Yeah. Like, I want my old self back. And she's like, well, what are you doing now? And then I would tell her, and she's like, well, that sounds good. Like, I don't like, kind of like, are you sure? Like, this sounds normal. Yeah. But then I don't see it as normal because it's not how I used to be.
Well,
but it's just very strange.
I've talked about, I've had a lot of really great experiences since Karen's died. Which again, I say that and it probably sounds strange, but I mean, she always told me, we talked about death, like, what if you die? What if you die? And we had those talks, and even kind of not, I'd say within a year of her dying, one day out of nowhere, she just said to me, she said, if I die before you do, promise me you'll keep living and you'll be happy. And she said, do all the things that you can't do with me, you know, and that's kind of what I've been doing. Mm-hmm. You mentioned what's the legacy. Well, I think part of my legacy, her legacy, is I'm doing what she asked me to do. And I'm living my life. Yeah. And it's hard sometimes, but I'm doing things that we would not probably have done together, but things that I like to do.
Yeah, but she's always with you.
And she's with me. And she also told me, this sounds typical Karen when I get to how she responded, but she was telling me this not that long before she died, you know, be happy, live your life, do all the things that you can't do with me. You'll have a chance to do more things on your own than you can now. Yeah. And then she said, and if you meet someone, don't be afraid. And then she stopped and she looked at me, and because Karen liked to be in control, you know, she said, matter of fact, if you meet someone you really like, it's going to be because I sent her to you. Oh. And I looked at her like, are you? And one time she even said, she started, this is on a separate occasion, but she said, she listed like 2 or 3 people.
Oh boy.
She said, one day she said, and I won't mention the name, of course, but she said, she said, if I die, I think you should marry her. And she listened, this was
Yeah.
like, and it's like, what do you, she's no, I think you two would be a really good couple. I think, so if I die, I think you should, why don't you marry?
She wanted to take care
And
of
she's
you
like
after.
taking care of me.
Yes.
But so when she told me if she died that she would send me somebody, of course, I said to her, well, I want you to be happy. And I was older than Karen.
Yeah.
And so it was always kind of like, well, I'll probably be the one to die first. But I said, I want you to be happy and I hope you find love again. And she said, she stopped and looked at me, said, no, I'll just get a little old lady apartment and a couple of cats.
Sounds about right.
And I thought, yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's just kind of what I would expect her to say. But then I said, oh, no, wait a minute. Are you saying that I need somebody in my life and you're fine with just cats? So in other words, you're like,
you need the help, but not me.
You need somebody to take care of you. I'm going to be just fine.
Yeah.
But you know what she also said? I remember, I don't know why I'm even saying this, but Karen used to tell me, she didn't say this a lot because we didn't sit around and have morbid conversations, but you do have real talk.
Okay.
She told me once, she said, talking about herself, she says, I hope I die before you do because I couldn't live without you.
She wouldn't be able to handle it.
And she said, I don't think I could. And she would have handled it. But
I think...
And something that's strange, again, I'm not trying to say this to be a hero, because I'm not a hero by any means. I'm glad she didn't have to go through it. Does that sound narcissistic or anything?
It's very painful, but
I'm glad she didn't.
I know exactly
have
what
to
you
go
mean.
Through.
Because the dead are at peace.
Somebody.
It's us humans that are left on this earth that have to deal with the pain of losing that person. We have a saying in Lebanese and the Arabic culture mostly is when you love someone so much, you technically tell them, may you bury me. Mm-hmm. And I always thought that was the weirdest thing. But it's like, I don't want to bear that. Like, may you just like put me to sleep, because if that happens the other way around, I would not be able to handle it. And,
you've been talking.
And I don't think it's selfish, but
I've seen a therapist for a long time, and I took a little break for about a year and a half. And we both agreed it was probably good to take a break.
Yeah,
it's kind of
they broke up with you.
But I just recently went back, and I'm laughing because like I called him. I said, I got to come talk to you, and But I was going to say, I think we're having a little therapy session here right now.
I think we are, but we're going to have to wrap up too.
God, this goes fast.
Mike, we're going to have to wrap up for real, but I want to thank you for being so open and raw and sharing, all of the little tiny details of Karen and yourself. And the grief is just... it's the most interesting process a human can ever endure. And I want to thank you for being with me today. And hopefully we'll be able to air this episode, because I genuinely think it's going to help so many people listening that have dealt with losing a loved one, if not multiple, unfortunately. But before we wrap up, do you want to add one last thing about grief, about yourself, anything to the listener that could help them in this process?
I just think for anybody that everybody will experience grief. And I kind of jokingly but seriously talked about crying and rolling around on the floor and curling up in a fetal position. And sometimes that's do it. Talk about it and say their name. Yeah. And if you ever wonder what to say to somebody else who's grieving, you don't have to say anything at all. Just be there. Matter of fact, sometimes it's best not to say anything. Just if you have a friend who's grieving, just sit with them. So,
Thank you.
so
I will take it to heart. Honestly, Mike, this has been amazing. I feel like I'm the ugly crier, and we started. And I told Hank and I told Thais, I was like, I can already feel like I was like this episode is just, I'm gonna cry, and I just already knew
and I
the
hope,
anticipation.
And now that I feel fine. I'm glad I cried. I'm glad I did.
Yeah, I'm glad that you did. And
but then you say, well, was I stupid? Was I silly? Was I this? I hope
none of the above.
I hope you got
perfect, Mike.
So I don't have to be
Mike. Okay.
No, but she always bad joke.
No, but is it weird to wish Karen a happy birthday today?
No.
Happy birthday to Karen.
Thank
and
you.
I hope today.
It's not weird at all.
I hope today you see her in many numbers and in many people and many situations, and carry her with you throughout the day.
So, well, I hope you got some things you can use. And
yes, Hank, how did we sound?
This podcast is produced by Main Floor Media. Created, executive produced, and hosted by Aya Karuni. Creative producer Hank Ball. Co-produced Thais Murias-Jarcin. Set designer and production assistant Frida Thailander. Hairstyling for me, Anastasia Jennings. Plants and floral elements provided by Grateful Growers and Carbon Coffee Lounge. Additional support provided by Dr. Ron Breal, Jim Walker, Haifa Sleiman, and Widad Sleiman. With gratitude to our title sponsor, Carbon Coffee Lounge.
Thank you so much for watching this episode with Mike Murphy. Thank you for sharing our tears, because I know it was a very sentimental episode. Up next, Jim Walker. You've already know who he is. He's been featured as my special guest in season 2. He's back again, and we're going to be talking about meditation. Stay tuned.